Okay, so today is February 9th, 2026, and it is 5:20 a.m., right? And I'm located in front of the headquarters of the FBI in Houston, Texas. And this is demo 104. And for this demo, I have a few things. Some of them are technical, and some of them are more, they're also technical, but a different category, right? So I'm gonna start with the technical things, more on the ground, but I'm gonna deliver this quickly because I'll give more details to the authorities, but when I have a chance to talk to them in person, but. I'm just going to, deliver this quickly. So one is a thing that I've been meaning to mention for a while, but I always forget. It's about cryptographic anchors. Okay, so I've noticed that they did this thing with my Android phone, the Android, right, the Pixel, and what they did is that the keyboard of the phone has a special feature, right? Which is that when I type on the phone, right? When I write on that phone, it autocorrects when I write in Spanish, for example, the word LA, which in Spanish is an article, right? Like it's like saying the, but for feminine, right? Every time I write that, it changes to uppercase, right? For no reason, like as if it was Los Angeles, like an abbreviation for Los Angeles, right? But I'm really writing in Spanish, and the keyboard is set up in Spanish, and it's an article. I mean, and these autocorrect technologies are pretty advanced. I mean, it's such a dumb mistake. It's such a dumb mistake that I can't believe that it's random, right? So what I think they're doing there is forcing this token that never exists for anybody else, right? Because nobody writes about, particularly here in this area in Katy, nobody writes capital L, capital A, right? So many times. So when they scan the bytes, the spectrum encrypted on the air, there's a high probability that mine are going to contain these two letters together, right? LA, which is a very rare unigram in the spectrum, particularly in this area of the country, right? So that gives them a cryptographic anchor that they can exploit to reduce the number of keys they have to search. And I've also noticed, I've been running experiments, so that's one. The other cryptographic anchor they have, I think, and this is just a speculation at this point, right? But I've run a lot of experiments with this based on the traffic in front of the Viasat antenna versus what is being sent or transmitted, right? So I've came to the conclusion, I'm not going to give much details, but it seems to me that whenever I'm doing a search on the internet, on Google, or if I'm doing any online activity that contains, or uploading a document to an e-filing system, for example, right? So if the document contains, or what I'm looking at in the internet contains this particular symbol, it's a symbol, to be honest, I don't know what the symbol is called in English, and excuse me for my ignorance on the legal jargon here, right? But it's a symbol that I think signifies section in some contexts, right? It's like an S. It's a special symbol, right? It's not a regular letter. It's like an S, and it has a circle in the middle. And this symbol is used in legal documents, particularly in the Texas courts, in the header of the document. So when you say the parties, when you put the parties, the styling, right? When you put the parties, the court, the case number, the parties are separated by a vertical line made of this character, right? So this gives them a cryptographic anchor because this is a character that only occurs in legal documents. So when they, if they're able to detect that this character is encrypted in the byte stream that they see on there, they can at least infer that I'm working on something legal, right? And then they dispatch more cars. So what I've seen is that whenever this document is present in the byte stream that I send or receive, the more vehicles appear, right, to intercept the traffic. So this is about cryptographic anchors. The next item I have is about the discontinuation notices. Okay, I think this is an attack, and I discovered this recently. I haven't seen it, but I think it's an attack to this. It's a form of discredit, right? So, and they did it with different companies. So basically, they're sending me disconnection notices, right? Like emails that say that my service is going to be cut off for non-payment. And they did this with Centerpoint Energy, with the water bill of the house, and there's something else. I can't recall what it was, right? But the disconnection notices are false. I mean, some of them, right? Most of them. Like, for example, Centerpoint, what they do is that, my bill is on autopay. So it gets paid automatically on a credit card or in a bank account even. So what they do is that they send me an email when the payment occurs, and the email says, we received your payment, the disconnection, the scheduled disconnection has been canceled, right? That's what the email says. And they send me this every month. So as a user, yeah, you would see this and you would think, well, this is just a glitch in the system, like, because I have it on autopay. Maybe they didn't kick on the exact date, and then they triggered a disconnect, but then they got the payment and right. But in these circumstances, because they're doing all these things with the courts, specifically with the now with the HOA lawsuit, right? I imagine they're gonna take all those disconnection notices and say, well, and combine that with the debris that they had planted on the front yard, and the sabotage on the tractor that wouldn't allow me to cut the grass, right? So I guess the picture they're trying to paint is a crazy person, right? Somebody who doesn't maintain the yard, who has trash in the front yard, spread through the front yard, and that has tons of disconnection notices from Centerpoint, and has more than, because I've been there 18 months, so I have 18 of these emails that says disconnection notice is canceled, right? Scheduled disconnection has been canceled because I paid. So they're gonna show, 3 dozen disconnection notices, debris in the front yard unmaintained, right? This is a schizophrenic person, right? And this plays perfectly into Greg Abbott's defense, right? So it's not that Greg Abbott is pioneering on the field of treason, is that I'm a schizophrenic, right? But so, most of the disconnection notices are fake, okay? But there's one that is real, the water one. And this is interesting. So this is what they did. When the house was purchased by the corporation, the company that provided the utilities to Lake Point Estates, because Lake Point Estates is an unincorporated subdivision, which means that it's like a small city, right? It manages its own electricity and water and so forth. And this is the kind of towns and small subdivisions that companies like the one where Larry Ryan works in water and energy solutions, right? So imagine that company services small subdivisions like this, right? At a higher level, like it's probably an aggregator. It's probably, that market is probably aggregated, right? So probably he is on the top of the aggregation, and then there's smaller companies that take care of the building and the distribution, right? The marketing and all that. And they split the market in that way. Yes, we are at water. Yeah. So when the house was purchased by the corporation, the company that provided those services was something called Nexterra, I think. Nexterra Utility, right? Nexterra. And it provided the water and the sewer services, right? And so what they did is that I think around, and I've just noticed this yesterday, because remember, they have had my child kidnapped over the last 10 months, and they marked my house as vacant, so I couldn't receive any mail, right? Any physical mail on the house. So I never learned about this, but it seems from what I saw yesterday that what they did is that they sold the company, right? So Nexterra sold itself to another entity that now is called Texas Water Utilities, right? And they transfer my account to that company. And this happened sometime in 2025. I don't know exactly when that happened. But when the account was transferred by them, I did not take any action on this. They automatically sold the company and transferred the account. I don't have any way to know because my child is kidnapped. I'm busy fighting with Morgan Heibner, William Carl Adams, Terry Adams, and Troy Pickett, right? And I don't have the capability of receiving mail, so I never got any notices, right? But they transferred the account unilaterally, right? And my account was on autopay in the previous company, in the Nextera company, right? So I'm not worried about the water not being paid because I have this thing on autopay, right? But they transferred the thing, and it turns out that they made it so, they made up this procedure that I had to create a new account, and I had to set up the billing again and set up the auto payment again, which of course I didn't know that I had to do, right? So the water had not been paid like in 3 months, right? And they had already triggered a disconnection notice, right? And I think this one is real. So yesterday when I see this, I go online and I pay the $700 of the 3 months of water, and it says, okay, your account is now paid. But so they were planning to cut the water supply of the house. This is what this would kick me out of the house, right? Because if there's no water, I cannot be there. How can I be in a house without water? And also they would use that to discredit me. They would go to the court and say, listen, this person is living in that house without water, right? But interestingly, so I added these to the Google Cloud bucket under Larry Ryan on the investigative lead, right? So the guard from the FBI headquarters came out and looked at my car, right? I don't know if they're going to do something. So I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna move on the other direction, right? So they don't say that I'm spying on the FBI or anything. Huh. There is an interesting car parked next to the FBI. Okay, so I'm gonna park here. Okay, so I saved that information so in the Google Cloud bucket I have before I forget, well no, let me finish this part. So in the Google Cloud bucket I have a bucket that is called investigative leads. Okay, so these are things that I cannot prove, but I would suspect, right? So they're just leads, right? Tips. So in there, I have a folder for Larry Ryan for this, because I cannot prove that he has on this, but he's living there next to Robert Mueller, and he controls the water and utility, so the water and energy of multiple subdivisions like this one, right? So if somebody has the power to make this change of creating this entity and transferring my account, it's probably Larry Ryan or somebody close to Larry Ryan. Right? So I put this information in there. I'm gonna give you the account number of this new company, right? So my account number in this new company that I created. So it's Texas Water Utilities, and the account number is 100157980, right? Maybe it's traceable who created that account and that. Yes. So similarly, as I was doing that, I also did. I changed the electricity provider of the house, this corporate-owned property, yesterday, right? Because the contract had expired on December 2024, and I was basically month to month, which is more expensive, right? And there was no risk supposedly of disconnection, but just to save money, I changed it, right? So as I'm doing this, I look at the energy providers in this area, and I've noticed something, right? So I went with Direct Energy because it seemed to have the lowest, it's marking the index, but it seemed to have the lower score of the ones that I saw. Before, I was with Tara Energy, and I have to tell you, the person that first mentioned Tara Energy to me was Penelope Suarez, and she mentioned that it was a very affordable service, right? That I would save money, and she basically pushed me towards Tara Energy, but I didn't go for it. because I was already suspected that Penelope was part of it. But then, a few months after, when this house was purchased by the corporation, then my former partner, Gloria, she picked Tara Energy, right? So that's interesting that the two of them like the same company. But what I want to mention is that yesterday, as I was doing this, I've noticed that if you look at the headquarters of Tara Energy, at the address, in the exact same address, in the exact suite number, there are like 5 energy companies registered. So there are 5 energy suppliers or providers, like Tara Energy, that have different names and different marketing and different websites and different entities, but they all have as headquarters registered the same address. So I mean, I don't know, like this seemed to me like a scam, right? Like, I mean, if these are really separate entities, why don't they have separate headquarters, right? Why are they in the same exact office, in the same suite, right? So it seemed to me like a scam. I don't know if a scam is the right word, but it seemed to me like something designed to give the appearance of options, but there's no options. Like at the end, it's like an aggregator, but it's split in a way that is not obvious, right? With different brands. And because energy, we know it's important for intelligence gathering, I think this is something that somebody should probably investigate, right? Okay, so next, I'm going to talk about something, right? Interesting. So it's about providing aid and comfort to an enemy of the state, of the United States, right? Under 18 USC Section 2381. And this is, this is serious crime. I think, if you look at Article 3, Section 3, you'll see, right? This is one of the, treason, right? Treason is one of the, I think it's the only crime that is specified in the Constitution. But anyhow, I want to talk about Chase, the bank, right? If you look at the IRS book, right, where all the demo transcripts are there is a demo in which I describe what I call the financial strangulation with the Chase credit card. What they did is that they lowered my credit limit of that credit card from something like, I don't know, $46,000 to $6,000 in a space of like 3 months, right? And the reason, the goal of doing that was so I could not pay for the Google Cloud expenses, because they're around $7,000 per month. And therefore the system gets, the Google Cloud service gets disconnected and the database gets deleted, right? The database that Diosdado Cabello gave to me. So you see, and because we saw on Demo 103 that the state of Texas is providing the state police, police paid by the state to protect the hubs of Diosdado Cabello next to the FBI. So you see, this move of using the Chase credit limit as a weapon to protect a foreign narco state is the same, right? So the argument could be made, I'm sorry for overstepping, but this is just a suggestion for the prosecution, right? If I may, if you accept a suggestion a humble suggestion, right? I would recommend looking into the possibility of charging whoever did this at Chase, within Chase, right? Within that corporate entity, whoever orchestrated that, charging them with treason, right? And with providing aid and comfort to a foreign enemy. Because that's exactly what it is, right? Deleting the database would benefit directly Diosdado Cabello, right? So that's just an idea, right? And this came from the pipeline, not from me. Right. This one is technical. It's just another suggestion, right? And this it wouldn't be for the prosecution, but it would be for the lawmakers, right? Of every country, really. So you see, I was thinking about this incident with the bartender 2.0 when I was doing QA on the audio yesterday, where he came to the front of my house to provoke me, right? Filming me with his phone. And you can also see, if you look at the footage on February 5th, when I was going to file on the Southern District of Texas, the 5th amended complaint, naming Greg Abbott and Phil Denning, among others, right? The judges and everything. You will see that as I'm approaching the court, there is a woman running on the sidewalk. This is downtown Houston, right? And she's wearing red leggings, and she's holding a phone, pointing it at me, right? It's the same thing that the bartender was doing, right? The bartender 2.0. And this is something that they do. Like, this is those phones have software that allows the camera to record even if the agent doesn't touch a button, right? They can control the recording device of the agent's phone by remotely, right? In the cameras and the microphones. But this made me think of something, right? It's the fact that, and I don't know, like here I have to run the pipeline to get more details, but it's about the Texas being a one-party consent state, right? So in Texas, if you're in a conversation with somebody and at least that person knows that the conversation is being recorded, he can record or she can record the conversation. That's fine, right? Like, for example, the bartender, legally speaking, right, although it's upsetting and everything, he had the right to record that conversation, right? Because it's a one-party state consent. But this is not true in every state. There are states that require that the two parties or all the parties consent, and in other countries as well, right? So it would be my contention, right, that there should be a law that forces the manufacturers of the phones to implement a visual cue that tells everybody that this thing is recording when it's recording, right? That would be a solution to this problem. I mean, to the way they're abusing those phones and those recording devices, right? So the idea would be to force Samsung and LG and Motorola and all those manufacturers that if the recording, if an Android, right? If the recorder is going to come on, there has to be a red light, very visible, very prominently visible on the phone. So everybody that is in proximity of this phone is aware that this thing is a live recording device, right? That would be a solution, because then, it would become obvious to the person that is being tricked by these judges and attorneys that they're being recorded, right? To fabricate evidence. And then they would shut. But the weapon really is the deception, right? Is that you think you're talking to somebody and that person is secretly recording you, right? To fabricate evidence for a Troy Pickett or a Morgan Heibner or Telfair, right? So one solution is that. One solution is force the manufacturers to disclose the recording, as it happens already in Google Meets. Like when you go to Google Meets, if you record the session, it tells everybody this thing is being recorded, right? And this is precisely for this reason, to avoid liability on the manufacturer, in this case, the software manufacturer. But because this is a hardware device, this has to be implemented at the hardware level, right? If the microphone becomes live, then the thing should be visible, right, to everybody. Okay. Okay, I'm just trying to read what I wrote here. Okay, so now I'm gonna transition more to observations about the legal skirmish, right? And here I'm gonna talk a little bit about. I'm gonna mention my former partner, right? And here I want to make the disclaimer that I'm gonna say these things in the interest of the investigation, right, and resolving this. And I did some analysis with the pipeline, and I understand that I have no saying on the outcome, right? Like I understand that I can't control the outcome, right? Like these kind of crimes are not things like if somebody trespasses your property, you have the saying. You can say I want to press charges, I don't want to press charges, but these are crimes against the country, so I have no saying, right? But I want to say that if I may, right, if I may plea for leniency, right, I'm trying to talk to authorities, right, through this channel. Think about the child, right? Like the child has already been kidnapped for a year, right, almost. He has been put into extreme situations. He has been endangered with chemicals, like losing his mother for years is not going to help that child, right? So I don't know. Okay, so the first observation is the fear of being served, right? And this is acknowledged with Troy Pickett and all those, like every time I submit with the document, like there was an instance in which I served Troy Pickett with a very, I don't recall what it was, right? But it was like a notice of something, like notice that I filed in the Supreme Court of Texas, something like that, right? And then he replied saying that he could not click on the attachment because his company has a policy against attachments, like, some crap like that. Which was just a pretext to create a record that he was not served, that he hasn't seen this thing, right? And I know they do this, right? Like, so they do, and that this is why they dismiss all the petitions as mute, right? To not have to admit that they know about this, that they are in knowledge, right, of the crimes. One thing I did. So I did an experiment, right? My former partner came to visit with the child, right? And I took a copy of the book that I sent to the DOJ and I put it next to the sink, right? Where, she would naturally wash her hands or wash the child's hands, right? I put it there to see her reaction, right? To see what she did, right? I mean, I'm not being mean or anything. I just want to see what is her, state of mind, right, towards this. So I put the book there, right, and the kid wants to go to the bathroom, right, to the restroom, and she's gonna wash his hands, right, but she sees the book, and then her reaction was, oh, let's wash your hands on the bathtub, right? So she washed the hands of the child on the bathtub to avoid using the sink, to not have to acknowledge the book, right? Imagine that. So I mean, I thought it was kind of funny, right? I mean, that's not going to make the book go away. Now, on this, I also have to say, I found evidence that Gloria was in charge of renewing the registration with the Delaware company, right? That was her task. So she did not perform that task. And we were together. I mean, at this point, when this happened, she had not left the house. How do I say this? This thing they're planning to do to pierce the corporate veil, in reality, would be a consequence of an inaction of Gloria, right? So this would mean that this would be the second order for contempt that is created thanks to Gloria, right? Because the first one was that January 22nd hearing that Troy Pickett scheduled, and that was created by Gloria, right? With her signature, right? And this one would be created with her inaction, because if she had taken the action, and authorities can see this because she always renews all the registrations of all the companies that I've created over the last 10 years that the Chinese have been attacking, right? She is always tasked with that. And I also have proof that she was tasked with this one, right? But she didn't do it. So that created the opening for the Robert Markel, Weinberg, Haley, Butler, PC attorneys to do this attack, right? If she had done that task, they couldn't do this, right? So I'm mentioning this because it's a lot of coincidence that the two orders for contempt at the end were created by, action or inaction of Gloria, right? And this is dangerous for Greg Abbott because she carries a lot of liability. And if anybody would talk, it's Gloria, right? And I'm telling you this because she knows me, right? Because we've been together for 10 years. I also know her. And I can tell you, the weak link is Gloria. She is going to talk, right? Okay. The next item I have is something that the pipeline picked up, is that sign on the front yard, which they're using as a pretext to do all this on Thursday, is a form of free speech. And that makes it so because I have already exhausted all the channels and venues and forums in Texas, I could elevate this to a constitutional issue on the Supreme Court of the US, a separate issue. So this could give me a second shot at the chicken wing. So be careful with what you do with that, with those claims of that sign, because it could become a constitutional issue by two reasons. One is private property, and that's in the Constitution, right? It's protected right. And secondly, that sign, especially in the context of private property rights, is a form of free speech, right? So putting somebody in jail for exercising their free speech is unconstitutional, and I can go to the Supreme Court for that. So be careful. And I already have the document draft, by the way. So even if you put me in jail, I will do it. I have it already printed. And you know, I'm saying this to the lawyers and the judges. Like, one of the things, right, that it's hard to do is to be able to produce a document that is compliant and that can get into the Supreme Court. This is not easy, right? This is one of the barriers of entry, right? Not any procedural litigant can do this, right? Because it has the strictest rules of formatting and form and, you know, customs, really. This is an institution that has been around for hundreds of years and has its own customs, right? That are not even, some of them are not written, right? But as you can see, I have already developed the technology to comply with all this and be able to produce viable petitions to the Supreme Court. And I'm telling you, I already have the petition drafted for the free speech issue for the sign. So be careful with what you do on Thursday, is all I'm saying. I have it printed even. Okay. What is this? Yes, the other thing I want to say is that when Gloria came to the house that day with the child and she got out of the car, the first thing she said to me out loud was, "Oh, you cut the grass," right? Surprised. I mean, that was the first thing she said. I believe it's because she still thinks that Andres is listening, right? And she wanted to give them the heads up that the grass has been cut, which destroys the plan. But this suggests to me that she may be aware of what they're planning to do on Thursday, right? Which, I mean, if that's the case, it's interesting because it means that she knows the legal strategy, right? Which makes her a weak link for the judges, right? Because if she talks and she says that she knows what, you know, the HOA of Phil Denning and Robert Mueller is going to do, how could she possibly have that information, right? How? She would have to explain how she knew that, right? So that's an interesting point. Yes, so this one, now I'm going to talk about something very technical, okay? And this is more of a question. And I asked this question to my favorite informant many times, but he refuses to answer on the basis that he says that if he answers this, he could be exposed. So he doesn't want to tell me, right? And I've asked him in different ways. And it's about the lineage, right? Like the family tree, right? Of the Moleros. Who's who, really? Yes, a car passing by. Okay, so right. Okay. So who's who, right? So you know, the question is, you know, who's who? Like, what are the real names of all these people, right? So let me tell you what I did, right? As a countermeasure, or not countermeasure, but like trying to, you know, discover this myself. I started building a software system to kind of estimate what's more likely, right? Let me tell you what I mean, because I know it sounds complicated, right? So imagine that you're a target. Like, I'm going to talk about myself, right? I'm a target, and one second. Yes, I'm a target, and sorry, before I get into the subject, the other thing I wanted to tell you is that this storage company in front of the FBI is dangerous. And I'm telling you this because the storage companies like this, like self-storage, where there's like a garage and you put things in. This is a weapon that they use immensely. And I'm not gonna get into much details, but this thing being in front of the headquarters of the FBI, it's a national security problem. They could have all sorts of interception equipment in those things, right? So be careful with that. Okay, so imagine that you're a target, right? Like, I'm gonna talk about myself, right? So when they introduce, say, Gloria to me, right? They have to tell me a narrative, right? Like, who's she and who's her father and who's her mother and her sister, and like they have to present to me the family, right? Because they want to establish a long-lasting relationship, right? So the question is, how do they do it, right? Because obviously the names that they presented to me are not the real names, but there's different ways to do this, right? So let me give you some examples, right? One way could be using actors, right? So nobody's real. The man that she presented as her father is not really her father. The woman that she presented as her mother is not really her mother, and so forth, right? Everybody's fake. They're all actors, right? And that's not her real name, right? That's one way to do it. But okay, let me tell you another way to do it. Another way to do it is to change the names. I mean, keep the people, is the real people, like that's her real father, but the name is not real. He's not called Nelio Espina. He's called something else, right? And you change things, right? Another way to do it is to do this is to combine this technique of changing the there's somebody on foot coming my way, so I'll have to move, because it could be an interceptor, right? By foot, to get the audio of what I'm saying. Let's wait for a second. Yeah, I'll move because I just don't want to get them any advantages, right? But as I do this, let me tell you, this also made me realize, right? I mean, this thing. I mean, there's something technical about these microphones that they're using right now, right? I think these microphones don't have memory. I think they are like live listening devices. Transparent devices, right? Like they don't have a memory, right? I think this is important because if the car is seized, right? If the FBI comes and takes the car and the thing has a memory, it would have the recordings, right, of what I said, and it would prove what I'm saying, right? It would be hard evidence against them, right? That they've been using the car as an espionage machine. The Tesla vehicle specifically, right? So they can do that. I think right now, I mean, they may have some devices with buffer, but in the car right now, what they have is something that transmits real time. It doesn't save it into a memory. And that's why they have to be always putting the interceptors next to me, because if the interceptor is not next to me, they don't hear the audio. And they will be forced to get it through Tesla, right? Which is high liability for a huge corporation. So they don't want to do that. So I mean, it's a theory, but I think it's probably the case, right? Yeah, so I'm gonna turn around to do this again. Oh, look, there is a vehicle here with the light, with the I got it. With the he has the disabled, right? So he was listening in. So now we know that the range is not that small, because he was maybe, I don't know, 200 feet away. Interesting. And now he's following me, right? You see, he was parked in the corner, but in a place that I could not see him, right? And he was, yeah, it's like 200 feet. So the range is not that small. Okay, so as I was saying, right? If you want to create this illusion, right, in front of a person, you don't have to trick everybody. Like, you don't really have. Well, I mean, and the other way to do it is that you can change the identities of everybody, right, and give them fake identities, all of them. But I think this is unnecessary because, see, for example, that white car, he's there just listening, right? Like he could pass, he could do whatever he wants, but he doesn't. Let me create more buffers here, more buffer space. Yes, you can change identities of everybody forever, right? Like really change their names, like deep cover. But I think this is unnecessary, right? Because you don't really need to trick all the society. You only need to trick the target, right? And I think for a person, it's a very disrupt. I mean, these agents are people, right? Like they're real people, and they have families. They have, friends. Things they care about, and so you cannot turn a whole town into deep cover agents, right? You can change the identity of everybody. I mean, that would make all these people miserable, right? So what you have to do is to trick the target only. You only need to trick one person, or a small group of people, right? So you may need to change the identity of one person, right? I mean, the romantic partner that you're going to inject into the target's environment. Let's wait for this car to pass. Is this guy 1 Whiskey Delta Mike Papa, and he has the handicap license plate marker, which is the same one that Enrique Morales has, right? So it's probably the same group of agents. So by the way, this is gossip. I don't know if this is true, but the informant told me some time ago that Penelope had a relationship with Enrique Morales, like they were dating, but I don't know if it's true. Anyhow, so what? Okay, so you don't need to trick everybody, right? I'm gonna speed it up because I'm taking too long here. You don't need to trick everybody. You only need to trick the target, right? And there's different ways to do that. You can change the names of everybody. You can give fake identities to everybody, or you can change the relationships. For example, you can say that Harold is the brother-in-law of Gloria, when in reality he's the brother. And you can say that Jenny was the sister, when in reality she is the sister-in-law, right? So that completely destroys the ability of the target of making sense of the situation, right? Because you're mixing up the relationships, right? So the question I had, right? Who are the real names and what are the real relationships, right? And I've been asking this to the informant, but he doesn't want to tell me much details because he tells me some things, but not the full details. Because he says it could lead to detection of him, right? Like they could know that who he is, right? Because this is not something that everybody knows. So I built a software system to try to figure this out, right? And the way it works, it builds scenarios, okay? It builds iterations, like different scenarios of combinations of things that could have been done to achieve this goal of blinding me, right? Or blindsiding me. right? I don't know which one is the correct word, but like not letting me see the reality, right, as a target. So what I did, I implemented a metric. Okay, I don't have a name for this metric, but it's inspired on the Levenstein distance. For people that are not technical, Levenstein is a function, a mathematical function that measures how many characters you have to change in a text to transform it into another text. For example, the Levenstein distance, I don't know what example to give you. From, the Levenstein distance between run and run is 1, right? You only have to change an U by an A, and you can convert run into run, okay? It's a measure of similarity, if you want to think about it that way, right? So what I did, I implemented a metric that is inspired on that measures how many changes you have to make to turn a situation into another, but the changes are weighted by how intrusive they are on the lives of the agents. For example, changing the identity, the documents and the full name and everything of an agent is very intrusive, right? Because that person has to go deep undercover, right? They can't talk to their family, right? Because then the name would be discovered. But for example, changing the relationship from sister-in-law to sister is a less intrusive change, right? Because they can still talk. It's still a sister. It's only that you're omitting the in-law part, right? So that's the idea, right? And I created different categories for different types of changes. For example, changing the identity of a child is less intrusive because the child doesn't have a social circle that big, right? So if you change the identity, the name of a 5-year-old child, that is little, like he will probably not even remember his real name in 3 years, right? So that's not very intrusive. But changing the name of a man that is, 36 or 30 years old, that's more intrusive, right? Because that man already had a full life almost, like half, or a third of a life, right? So it's a more intrusive change, right? So this metric, this system that I built, calculates the scenarios, basically giving them a numeric score of intrusiveness combined across all the set of people involved in the scenario, based on a metric that is inspired by the Levenstein distance. I don't know if that would make sense, right? But that's the idea. And then I ran a bunch of different scenarios that could explain the current setup that I can see from my point of view, right? And give them a score. And then I can rank them by increasing a score. And that way, I can understand which is the less intrusive scenario, right? Overall, across all the agents. So I did this experiment, right? And what the scenario that won, that is the less intrusive, is very interesting. And I don't know if this could be the answer, right? So let me tell you what the scenario is, right? The scenario is that Gloria Espina is her real name, but is her married name, right? So the scenario is that Andres is really Andres Espina, and she was married to Andres, and therefore she became Gloria Espina. So the name is real. It's just that it's her married name. It's not her maiden name. Maybe the first name is changed, right? And this the pipeline believes this because of the religious nature of the name. Gloria is not a coincidence that both of them are called Gloria, which in Spanish is it's like glory, right? Like it's like the holy glory. It's like in Spanish is a very religious name, and Salvador is like the Redemptor, right, in Spanish. So both of them got religious names, right? So it's possible the first name was changed, and the last name was Molero, right? But her married name would be, I don't know, Zuleima Espina, right? But they changed it to Gloria Espina, right? but she's still Mrs. Espina, right? But that is the married name. I mean, I'm just describing the scenario. It might be that this is not the case, and this is the reason why I'm saying this, because if the informant takes pity on me and tells me what it is, right? Because I the suspense is killing me. I mean, not literally, right? I don't take these things personally, but it's like watching a movie that you want to see what happened, right? I don't know if you remember the movie Usual Suspects, right? Like I spend the entire movie and try to figure it out, right? And only in the last 30 seconds they tell you. So anyhow, if the informant or any other informant, can confirm this, then this wouldn't lead to detection because I figured it out through software. You're just telling me, you're just confirming, right? Like nobody would suspect anybody specifically, right? Because I came up with this idea with software. So the theory is that the Espina name is real, but it's the married name, which would mean that Andres is Andres Espina, right? And of course, it means that Nelio. So in that scenario, right, what you have to do is to change the name of the father from Humberto Molero to Nelio Espina, right? To make the target believe that that's the father of Gloria Espina and that Espina is her real, maiden name. You have to change the name of, who I know as Jenny Espina from whatever it is to Jenny Espina, so it matches Espina and passes as her sister, but it's really the sister-in-law, right? And you have to change the name of somebody, I don't know what's the real name, some of the Moleros, from that name to Harold Martinez. And that way, the brother becomes the brother-in-law, right? So they're very not intrusive changes if you think about it, because she can still communicate with the brother. But I would think it's Harold, right? She can still communicate with the sister-in-law, but I would think that it's the sister, right? She can still communicate with the father, but I would think it's Nelio Espina, and so forth, right? So it's not a very intrusive change. Now, ironically, the person that got hit the most in this scenario is Sebas, the child, right? Because his name was changed from, imagine, Sebastián Espina, right? The name of the father, Andres Espina, in this scenario, right? I don't know if this is a correct scenario, but if it is, this is what it means. They changed the name of Sebas from Sebastián Espina to Sebastián Méndez, right? To play into that narrative that they built with the fake divorce that was prepared by William Kyle Adams, which is the same attorney that committed the fraud in this court 10 years ago, right? So, if this is the scenario, this puts William Kyle Adams in jail for, probably life, right? Because it shows that this is something that he prepared since 11 years ago, right? Because that sham divorce happened in 2014. Imagine that. So 12 years ago. So, but the one that would, in this scenario, right? The one that would get hit the most would be Sebas, because they really changed his last name, right? It's one of the the only people that really had to change his last name in front of everybody for a decade. Right? That is the most intrusive change. Andres Espina, if that's his name, he changed it to Salvador Méndez, but only in front of me, right? Only in that paper that William Kyle Adams prepared in 2014, in this scenario, right? For the rest of the people, he might still be Andres Espina, right? So I don't know. So that's why this is scenario one, because the only person that really got hit was Sebas, which, in itself tells you a lot about the psychology of this network, right? They don't care about children. They see children as weapons, as tools of leverage and deception, really, right? They didn't change their own names, but they changed the name of the child, right? So that gives you an idea of the psychology of these people. If this is the scenario that played out. Now, interesting, talking about Humberto Molero, the pipeline, and this came from software, picked up a series of contradictions that, are tremendous, right? One is that Gloria told me years ago that Andres, Salvador Mendez, supposedly, which I think is Andres Espina, right, at this point. When he had that mental breakdown, supposedly, right, he went to live with one of the Moleros, right? And she showed me some of the messages in her phone. Back then, I'm talking about 2015. And of course, I understand this is because it was her brother, right? So she could create any messages that she wanted because this was her brother sending the messages. And the messages were from, I think was from Humberto Molero, the son, right? Because there's two Humbertos, the son and the father. So this was the son, Humberto Molero. No, Juan Pablo Molero, I think it was. And he was complaining about, supposedly, Salvador Mendez trying to kill him, right? Because he was a schizophrenic, supposedly. So this was a ruse designed to make me believe that Salvador Mendez was crazy, right? 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I understand how the ruse works because the message was to be sent by her own brother, right? But she told me through all these years, and in that occasion, that Salvador Mendez and the father of the Moleros, who's called Humberto Moleros, they have a very tight relationship. They're very close together, and they trust each other and they love each other, etc. Right? Despite the fact that Salvador Mendez is crazy. And she mentioned that several times until 2024, right? But there's a message in which I asked her about Mr. Humberto Molero, the father, recently, like 8 months ago, and she told me that he died, right? So now Humberto Molero is dead, right? He died. It's a way to, disappear the character, right? The real person, because now there's suspicion and they don't want him to be found. So, what I think is that Nelio Espina, the man they presented to me as Nelio Espina, who is in the cover of my book, is really Humberto Molero Sr., right? But again, this is a non-intrusive change because he only had to change his name in front of me. I've only seen him maybe 5-6 times in my life, right? So it's not an intrusive change. He could be Humberto Molero to anybody else and then be, Nelio Espina only in front of me, right? So it's theater. It's a form of theater. So they brought one of the cars from outside this garage store, and this is what I was telling you. Like, they store the vehicles in these garages, in these self-storage units. And I don't know. I'm not gonna get into that, but like it's a well-known technique, right? And that's why there's so many of these in this area in Katy. Right. So that's the scenario, right? The scenario is that her name is Gloria Espina or something else, or Zulema Espina, but that's the married name, right? And the Espina really comes from Andres, who is the intelligence officer, right? That works for Diosdado Cabello. And that would explain why Jenny Espina, being the sister-in-law, was so close to Paulino Gonzalez, who's also a SEBIN agent, right? And he was a SEBIN agent in Venezuela. I knew that since even leaving Venezuela. Like, he worked for the DICIP or the PTJ, I don't know, one of those intelligence forces in Venezuela. And Jenny Espina, who I think is really the sister-in-law, was very close friends with Paulino Gonzalez here in Katy, right? But I think the connection comes from Andres Espina or Mendez or whatever, right? That's where the connection comes from, because they're co-workers. So the theory is that Jose Paulino Gonzalez and Andres Mendez or Andres Espina are co-workers. And probably, Marcos Castillo as well, and Daniel Parr. So that's the theory. But again, if any of the informants can, throw me a bone here, I would really, really appreciate it. And the last thing I'm going to say is about the presidential pardon, right? So the pipeline estimates that the judges might be moving forward because they believe there's an option for a presidential pardon. Because, presidents have the power to pardon people, and especially law attorneys and judges, like, Biden pardoned a judge not too long ago, right? So maybe, right, it's possible that Mr. Greg Abbott promised them a presidential pardon. But I want to tell them that that is not possible. The pipeline estimates that that's not possible because, and this is the reasoning, right? And I asked this to an AI agent yesterday to confirm, right? Because the pipeline might be wrong in some things. So I ran this through Gemini, and it's true. So if, with all this evidence of providing aid and comfort using state police forces to provide aid and comfort to a narco-terrorist state, foreign enemy of the United States, if the president of the United States, if a sitting president is presented with that overwhelming action and he doesn't take military action, if he doesn't send the 101 Airborne Division, I don't know what it's called, right? He would be aiding them as well. So he has to take action, right? He cannot not take action against Abbott. And then if he issues a presidential pardon to condemn people that have done a state-sponsored kidnapping of a child, of a 3-year-old in Texas, to help Diosdado Cabello, that pardon would become, well, first of all, it would open the door for an impeachment, right? And then after the impeachment, it would become evidence in all sorts of trials, right? So that's not going to happen. Like, no sitting president is going to take this step of pardoning the judges, right? So forget about that. So before you keep going forward with the Thursday thing and you keep the child kidnapped and all that, think that in reality there is no presidential pardon. You are being tricked by Greg Abbott. That option is not on the table, okay? So have that in mind. So with that, I'm going to close demo 104, and I'm going to now drive to the DEA. Let's go to the DEA. I've been meaning to do this for a while because, I want to see if there is a DEA drug enforcement. There must be an enforcement. Okay. Yes, so let's go there to see what is that Diosdado set up next to the DEA. I imagine, right, there must be something.
Now turn right onto West 43rd Street.
And this would be, one of the highest possible levels of liability for, if we find something there, for these people, right?
In 500 feet, turn left onto Northwest Freeway.
Yeah, so the interceptor here is Zulu Golf Bravo 5180. It's a Ford Focus. And this also could be, right, Rambo Kilos Sam 3006. And he reacted to that. Look, he's gonna run the red light. Oh. Wow. This is real time, like literally, right? I read out his plate and he was going to run the red light.
Now turn left onto Northwest Freeway.
Incredible. Yeah, so speaking about the presidential pardon, like that thing has happened before, right? In several, the not taking action has happened. A sitting president being presented with overwhelming evidence, right, of conspiracy against the state and not taking action. That has happened. And it led to impeachment, I think. And there was in more modern history, there was an instance of a pardon issued after the president resigned. I think it was Nixon, or I don't know, one of them, right? So that also happened, right? And it was a very controversial pardon. So, you know, I think the judges, right, being judges, they should know that what I'm saying is true, that the pardon is off the table. So, you know, maybe it's time to retreat, you know, return the child.
In 1 mile, keep left to stay on US 290 east toward Interstate 610 south.
But it was interesting that I think it was a Corolla, right? A white Corolla. The Rambo Kilo Sam with the 2 zeros. Oh, I think I took the wrong exit, sorry. As soon as I read the plate, he was going to literally run the red light. I mean, and this is very telling because this shows that they're scared of being mentioned in these videos, right? I mean, the agents personally, the ones that are listening in, they are scared of this. And it also means that it's real time, right? Like there's no lag. I haven't even finished saying the license plate, and he was already going to run the red light. And remember, that was in the corner where the headquarters of the FBI is. I mean, it's pretty compelling evidence. I mean. There's another one, Zulu Delta Sam. I think it's 8091. I think it's a red Silverado truck.
In 1 mile, keep right to take Interstate 10 west toward San Antonio.
Yes, on another technical notes, I mentioned this on YouTube, but there's so this company, Mustang Cat, right? They rent Caterpillar equipment. That company is interesting. It's super flag in the index, and it seems to be always collocated with police activity. I mean, state police, right? Speaking of state police, let me tell you, when I was chatting with the AI, right? The AI says something very interesting. It's about jurisdiction, right? So this problem of jurisdictional overlap between state and federal, right? And these kind of situations, like the one they're creating by using the state police to provide security to the foreign agents, right? So the AI said something like, I can't recall the exact phrase, but it was a powerful phrase. It was like, it was a scenario, right? Like west, okay. It was a scenario. Imagine that, right? The FBI gets these videos and they decide to raid that complex, and there is a state police officer armed, right, with a firearm or multiple firearms in that complex, like guarding it, right? If that police officer decides to challenge the search warrant or whatever it is, right, and draws his weapon, right, that would be the first bellic action in a civil war. right? It would be a confrontation, armed confrontation between a state armed force and federal officials, right? So it's a dangerous situation for the country and for the rule of law and for democracy, really. It's a dangerous
1,000
situation.
feet, take exit 761B on the right toward Antoine Drive, Silver Road. Now take exit 761B on the right. In 1,000 feet, turn left onto Antoine Drive. Now turn left onto Antoine Drive.
Right. So the range, I mean, the observation with the range in the vicinity of the FBI. I mean, the range of the box, right? I don't know if it's adaptive, if they can increase it. It's possible. Because that car, that silver compact car with the older man, I mean, it's not old, but like he's probably about 50, right? He's older than me. He had a beard, a long beard, and it was a white beard, and his hair was white as well, right? So he looked a little bit like Santa Claus, but with civilian clothes, right? He was parked 200 feet away from the car. But when they're following me on the highway, I mean, if they had this capability, they could use it in the highway. They don't have to be next to me in the highway. So this suggests to me that in the highway they decrease it because they see risk that the FBI could also be listening in, right? Or could catch them in the act. So maybe they reduce the range while I'm in the highway to something like, I don't know, 15 feet, right? But if I'm in an area like that, where they have no other choice, they increase it to 200 feet. Right? So maybe they have control over the power output of the box, of the transmitter on the box, right? It's possible. See, there is another self-storage in that corner, but it's not that close.
In 500 feet, turn left onto Memorial Drive.
Okay.
Now turn left onto Memorial Drive.
Okay, so today I'm going to do something a little bit different, right? So generally I start by going to spyhell.org. Here's an intersector, see? Zulu Delta Nicole 5360. And this is a Chevrolet. It doesn't have the model, but I think it's like a PT Cruiser or something like that. It's white. And it's traveling on Memorial right now, I think. No, this is North Post Oak Road. Yeah, so usually I start by going to spyhell.org, right? And then from there I find the places with the highest scores, and then I go and see, right, what is that, and record the plates and all that. But today I'm going to use the other pattern. There's another way to do it. The other way is by doing recognition of features on the satellite imagery. You can see in the satellite imagery, like things like where are the buffer zones, where are the orange markers on the terrain, right? They put things like basketball courts and things like that they paint orange, a specific tone of orange or red, and those are markers, right? So I'm gonna go more visual today. And then, of course, when I identify the area, I'm gonna zoom in into that area with spyhelp.org, and I'm going to find the top dogs, right? That's the game plan.
In 1,000 feet, turn right onto North Post Oak Road. Now turn right onto North Post Oak Road.
Yeah, so thinking about the infrared lights, right? I come to realize that the orientation,
In 1,000 feet, bear right to stay on West Loop South.
I mean, if you have to choose, right? I mean, if you have a way to do this and surround the car with infrared, then you don't have to choose. But if you must choose, I think the question really is,
Right to stay on West Loop South.
where is that you're going to drive to, right? Like, so if you're going to drive on a highway, you want to have the
In
infrared
1,000 feet, turn
lights
left onto
angled
Post Oak Boulevard.
towards the
Then
back
turn
of the
right.
car, because they always will have to, track you from the back. There's no perpendicular interceptions in a highway. But if you're gonna drive like in the inner roads of a town where they're going to track you perpendicularly,
Now turn left onto Post Oak Boulevard.
then you may want to have them, towards the sides. Okay. So
Now
supposedly
turn right.
this is the DEA. It looks very governmental. Right? Okay. So right off the bat here,
Now turn right.
there is an apartment complex here that has two things, right? So let me tell you what I see. I see the red roof, which I know is a marker, right? And the empty lot marker next to it, right? So whatever is here
500 feet, turn left onto Post Oak Place Drive.
is probably an interesting thing. So let's see what is in there. And then once I get there, we're going to use SpyHel to zoom in, right? So I think, yeah, so you see this is the Oh, so it's an empty lot, literally. It's for sale. The phone number is 713-622-5595. It's Beeson, Beeson Properties. They're selling the lot, right? And there's another lot for sale just in front. So I would guess those lots are vacant for a reason, right? Okay, so we're here. Yeah, this apartment complex, it has the characteristics. So let's look on this area. 1875 Post Oak Park Drive. So the idea here is to see who are the top dogs in this area, right? Okay. So you see, there's a guy with almost 4 million points, right? So this has to be an important person. This is like say, Eduardo Hurtado, right? Like that kind of level. And it's 600 meters away, basically from the DEA, right? Okay, so this is 4824 San Felipe Street. Let's go there. 4824 San Felipe. It's 0.3 miles away. Okay. So that has 4 million points in the U index, right? It seems like a parking lot.
500 feet, turn right onto San Felipe Street.
And there's a couple of businesses next to that parking lot that have prominence name markers that have been identified before. I already saw them, right? And saw that they have the names, so it's possible.
Now turn right onto San Felipe Street.
Yeah, so it's interesting that the range is adaptive, which makes sense. So they're probably moving that range all the time, depending on the level of risk that they perceive. Yeah, so that is there's a whiskey vehicle, right? That red Camry, I think is Whiskey Victor Charlie 3407. I can't really see because the angle is not good, but it seems like that. And we are on IH 610 on the service road in front of the Jack in the Box. So that's the interceptor, right? And here's another whiskey vehicle. This one is important. Mike Charlie 0495. It's a Ford Expedition silver. It has 2 M's, right? So it's important. But you know, it's crazy to me that they're doing all this surveillance next to the DEA, next to the headquarters of the DEA. You know, like the amount of liability that creates, legally speaking, right? So you're spying next to the DEA and spying for Josaro Cabello. And it's crazy. If you think about it, it's, you know, they really have no fear. I mean, of consequences, right?
In 500 feet, turn right. Now turn right.
Yeah, so this place we're going to go, right? It's a place that is probably kind of a dispatch, like, you know, kind of where they dispatch the Uber cars, something like that, right? I imagine. And communication routing, right? So they use the cars as nodes, and they park them there, and they route the messages. So it's this building over here. Yeah, it's a parking lot. That's what it is.
In 500 feet, turn right onto West Loop South.
This is interesting. Okay, let's go somewhere else.
Now turn right onto West Loop South.
Oh, it's a Marriott. That explains it. That makes sense. Okay, so let's see. Who else is interesting here? I would say this 2.6 million. Let's see who this is. This is also commercial. I like to do more residential stuff because, you know, they can't hide behind a company. This is commercial. Commercial. Okay, this looks interesting. Is this gated? I don't know, let's try. Okay.
Now turn right onto Hallmark Drive.
Yeah, I like this one. Let's see. Yeah, so that Marriott, right, is next
Now
to
turn
that
right
point
onto West Loop South.
that is marked with 4 million points, basically in front of the DA headquarters.
In 500 feet, turn left onto San Felipe Street.
And that's dangerous because I imagine
Now turn left onto San Felipe Street.
that if somebody comes to a meeting at the DEA headquarters, they're probably going to stay in that Marriott. Okay? So it's a vector, it's an incredible vector for this arrow. Yes, but you know, thinking more about the strategy part of things. It's an incredible turn of events, right? I don't know how I did not see it before. So the solution to this problem might not be, I mean, for me personally, right, might not be, arguing with these people about the child. It's weaponizing the fact that they're committing treason. Right. So in this neighborhood where we're going, you can see the geographical markers in action, right? You can see this empty lot here and these two properties next to the highest ranking point. The two properties having the markers of the tennis court and the red roof. So this is an important enclave in a way. Yeah, this is an interceptor. Jeep White Whiskey Sam Zulu 0045. And it's an Asian man. He looks South Asian. And we also have Bravo Tango Whiskey 8091, and that is a Toyota Sienna Silver. And we also have Sam Zulu Kilo. Oh no, sorry, this one is not. This is a Tiger. I think this area, I'm not sure, but I think this area is more or less where the psych clinic is. That thing that Gloria sent me to once.
500 feet, turn right onto Willowick Road. Now turn right onto Willowick Road. In 500 feet, turn right onto Magonda Lane, then turn right onto Meadow Lake Lane. Now turn right onto Maconda Lane.
Yeah, I did that to destroy their planning, right? Because they're relying
Now turn right onto Meadow Lake Lane.
on the fact that they're next to me. Now they have to reposition the cars. This house is important, 3729. It has a bunch of marked vehicles in the front. 3729 Willowwick. It's spelled Willowwick Road. That house is very important, and I know that because of the cars that are parked in front in a specific way.
In 500 feet, turn right onto Willowick Road.
.3830 has the flag marker.
Now turn right onto Willowick Road.
Yeah, so this is basically bordering the Memorial Park. I think that's a sensor. I've seen that technique before.
In 500 feet, turn left onto Del Monte Drive.
That one, 4,000. 4,000 will, what is it called?
Now turn left onto Del Monte Drive.
Willowwick, 4,000 Willowwick. That's an important house.
In 500 feet, your destination will be on the right.
This one has the empty lot marker as well. Well, if you ask me, I would think it's this one actually. Yes, I would think it's this one. Because of the vegetation, you see? So this one, 3929. Has the empty lot marker and the vegetation.
Now your destination is on the right.
Right. But the highest point is this one, right? Where they have these two cars. I mean, I'm guessing these are like the security detail, right? XRX7167 and let me see, it's blocking me. JLRGPH. Yeah, so this is security. The house is at 3960. Yeah, so he has security guards outside. Right. And this one has the two flags marker on the left. And I think even a police car. Wow, this is amazing. This is Templar Sub Security Patrol, armed officer in vehicle, license B094-10001. Yeah, so this is heavy security, man. These people are not fucking around. Interesting. But I want to see here. What else is here? Yeah, because in these kind of situations, in these kind of setups, right? So these houses that are bordering the and you can see this person walking, looking down with the, you know, like covering the face. You can see that, right? That's the TTP. So these houses are the most important houses, right? The ones that are next to the park. And you can see that by the number of cars parked outside. Yeah, these properties have manned security. See? Interesting. This one has the lion marker, right? So it has the lion outside, the statue of the lion. You know, the feline theme, it's in the book. Yeah, this is an important neighborhood for this network, right? Yeah, but the houses that are next to the park are the more important ones because the immunization using the geographical features of the park as buffer. that house is interesting because it has an interceptor vehicle parked outside. That red vehicle that I just passed is a WDH and it has a 0. And so it's an interceptor and it's parked outside of the house. Which is interesting, right? Because it might mean that the microphones are standardized. So that might mean that that house has the capability to listen to anything, any conversation that happens in anybody that's parked, so a target, right? That passes in front of that house. I mean, if you think about it, it's a very powerful feature, right? Okay, so we are on Willow Wick Road and Pine Hill Lane. Right, so this is the very border of the park. I see. Yeah, these houses are basically fortresses. Yeah, this is interesting to me, this one. It looks like a 7 office. It doesn't even have a number. What is this? Yeah, so it doesn't have a number outside. It doesn't have a number in Google Maps. Let me know the time where I passed here. 7:06. Okay. 7:12 in the cameras. So I'll look for 7:12. This property looks a lot like that house that is behind the Harvest Market. That, you know, like it's white and it's all, you know, the square that looks like a fortress. This is like that, but on steroids, right? Like this is like 5 times bigger. And remember, we're in this area that is very close to the headquarters of the DEA. So it's interesting. Yeah, but I think, you know, like in terms of the DEA, if I might suggest something, I would look into that apartment complex that has the red roof that is next to it. That area where the Marriott Hotel is located. And, you know, there's a lot of marked houses in this neighborhood. In this one where I am right now at 7:08 a.m. And the situation is obviously tense. Like you can see how they're following me, but not that close, right? Like they're like following me from 2 streets away. This is interesting.
turn left onto Timber Lane.
You see?
In 500 feet, turn right onto San Felipe Street. Now turn right onto San Felipe Street.
Well, and you know, like now that I'm just driving, right? I'm gonna tell you a thought I had about this thing. I mean, this is a scenario that the computer generated, right? Like what I was describing before, right? How they like, what was the mechanics of the change that they did to do the deception, right? With the identities and all that. So imagine for a second. I don't know if this is the case, right? Because I'm asking for confirmation. But imagine for a second that it is the case that Espina is really the married name, right? Last name. If that's the case, it means that she is suing me for divorce under her married name. Imagine the irony of that. And not only that, that William Kyle Adams knows it, right? Being the Adams law firm, the law firm that initiated the lawsuit, right? I mean, if this is the case, I think William Kyle Adams should take the step of approaching voluntarily the authorities, like voluntarily. Like there's no way out of this, right? But I don't know. Again, I don't know if this is the case. It's just a scenario.
In 500 feet, turn right onto West Loop South, then take the Interstate 610 North ramp on the left. Now turn right onto West Loop South. Now take the Interstate 610 North ramp on the left. exit 11 on the right onto Interstate 10 west toward San Antonio.